Hey, everybody. Happy Tuesday. It's Cari and I are back again this week. We're excited to continue our conversation around really over-identifying with our role in
Mhm.
life. Maybe, it doesn't just necessarily need to be your role in work. It could be a role that you play in your personal life.
Mhm.
And sometimes what Cari and I have noticed, especially with a lot of our coaching clients, is that we over-identify with the roles that we have, like I said, in our personal life or in our business. And
Mhm.
once we are become self-aware, Cari, that we can say like, okay, I think that I'm over identifying with
Mhm.
this. Now what's the next step? First of all, how do you know that you're over identifying? And once you determine that, what are the next steps that we can take?
Yeah, it was such a great conversation, by the way, last week, Haley. I'm glad that we got into that conversation. We had some good comments and I had some good private messages. I think you did too, because this is a real thing. It doesn't matter if you're a stay-at-home mom. It doesn't matter if you have been married for 40 years and you're like, I don't know who I am outside of being the significant
Yeah.
other of my spouse. It doesn't matter if you've been an entrepreneur like me for 24 years and you're like, wait, am I my business or who am I? We all go down this path where we get so immersed with what we do that we forget who
Yeah.
we are. And I think that's
Mm-hmm.
the real key. So the signs would be if you go on a lot of emotional roller coasters based on the relationships that you're in or the businesses that you run or the business that you do or the role that you play professionally, if you feel successful when the other person is successful or something in the marriage or your child is doing something successful,
Right.
if you feel happy or really extremely happy and successful and you take on that success when your business is doing well, and vice versa when you go into really a deep depression or get in a bad funk when something happens in a relationship that you have or when something doesn't go well in business. If you take on those emotions and you find yourself in those
Mm-hmm.
extremes, that would probably be the main sign that you are over identifying with what you do. Because where we want to get, Haley, is we want to get where we can look at every single situation, good, bad, and ugly, and say, it just is what it is. We can handle this. It's just part of life. It's part of this game we get to play on earth, which is, we try to be the best parent we can be. And we try to nurture this person. But at the end of the day, they are who they are. I am who I am. And this is going to be their journey, whether I like it or not. Or, you know what? This didn't really go well in business, but this was a learning experience. And so maybe it's a stepping stone for the next thing. Like we need to get to that neutrality where
Yeah.
it's like, we aren't the success or failure. We're not either. We shouldn't get super excited and brag about all these successes because it's really not us. It's just, yes, some of the things that we do contributed to that, but probably other people too, right? And we can't really take on all the successes of our children because it's not all us. We can't
No.
take on
Yeah.
all of that. So we have to stop taking on those things, those wins and those losses or those perceived successes and failures in an emotional way that actually makes us feel good or bad. That is the sign. And that's not where we want to be.
Yeah. Can I share with you the moment that I realized that I was over identifying with my
Yes.
previous role? So I was so consumed with being the best version of myself, which became really the best chief of staff, the best executive assistant. Um, and it was the moment when my previous coach had asked me, she said, what would you do if you lost your job today? What would happen? How would you feel? And I instantly, I don't know if I said this out loud, if I was just thinking it, I said, and I'm embarrassed to say this, but it's the truth. I want to be
Yes.
completely honest here. I said to myself, I would have nothing. I would be nothing, which is not true, of course.
No,
And that's absolutely not true. I would be just fine, right?
that's
I,
just
I
how
have,
you felt though.
but that's how I felt. I felt like my entire world would have crumbled before me if I
Mm-hmm.
did not have that
Mm-hmm.
title, that role, that responsibility, knowing that I was making the impact that I was. And it became so toxic. And it took me a while up until now to accept that and
Yeah.
to admit that I was wrong and to forgive myself for setting those expectations that no
Mm-hmm.
one demanded of me, Cari. Nobody
No,
demanded that I do that. But
that was just you.
yeah,
Mm-hmm.
that was me. It was the perfectionist in
Mm-hmm.
me trying to prove that I was worthy and that I was valuable. And
Yeah.
here's the thing, Cari, and I know you had taught me this. I was already enough from the moment that I was hired. I was enough the moment that I had the first conversation. There was nothing that I needed to prove. I had already proved it to them.
Yeah,
Here's the trick though. I was trying to prove it to myself.
that's right.
And
That's exactly it.
yeah. And so then, Carrie, once we identify this, then what do we do? What are some tactics or suggestions that you would have for people who are in this moment right now in their life?
Yeah. So thank you for that, because yes, sometimes we do things and we're like, gosh, what was I thinking? That's embarrassing. But that's really, really important to be authentic and transparent, because I guarantee you there are people watching right now that are feeling that way. And so, you're not alone, because we all do this. I mean, I have literally seen parents, when their children graduate, have complete breakdowns because they have no idea what they're going to do with their life. It was the feeling that you had, which was like, I don't know what I would do. Everything would come crumbling down. And it's because they are only thinking of themselves as a mom. They have no idea what else they are. What else could they bring to the table? What is their life going to be like? How could they ever show their worth? Like, what is their purpose? They have nothing.
Yeah.
And they have to literally rebuild their life. And it really is because throughout those 20 some years or whatever it ended up being, they literally didn't take a minute to realize and focus on who they were. It was all about what they did, which is why we named the topic of this Real Talk that. So you actually are a great example of this. And I'm not going to obviously go down specifics, but when you and I work together and you have this awareness, the first step, and I've said this in every talk, so I'm sorry if I sound like a broken record, but we have to realize this is the pattern. You have to become aware of it. 95% of people aren't aware that they're over-identifying with what they do and they don't really know who they are. I mean, if we knew that, we wouldn't be in the position we're in.
Right.
We're not in the conscious state to recognize that. This is a very subconscious situation. I will tell you that most of the time, this is boiling down to something from our past.
Oh, yeah.
Everybody has a past. Nobody's was perfect. And even if it wasn't really that bad, our perception was our reality. So
Yeah,
whatever
it was
we
the lens,
perceive.
and it was the lens in which we were looking through. And a lot of people don't like to think like, oh,
Mhm.
that sounds so, psychology based or
Yes.
like, fairy based, whatever.
Yeah.
No, it's because there's something that happened to us as a
Yep.
child or as a
Mhm.
teenager or something
Yeah.
we've held on to. And here's the
Mhm.
thing, that was just our reality. It doesn't make
Yeah.
it real. Our reality is just our reality. It's simply that.
Yeah.
It doesn't make it real for everyone. It was just the
Right.
lens in which we were
Yeah.
viewing the world. And when this
It's,
incident happened,
yeah.
we then started to look at different things in around us
Mhm.
to prove that what we were thinking, what our reality was
Mhm.
true.
That's right.
So that's absolutely correct. When you're young and you think, I'm not loved, I'm not
Mhm.
worthy, I'm not
Yeah.
good enough. This happened and I feel stupid. Then we start
Yep.
looking for all of these scenarios, all these instances that
To
will
prove we're right. Yeah.
prove that we're right. Absolutely. And so then we live our whole lives or our whole going into adulthood
Mhm.
looking for things to prove we're not loved, we're not
Yep.
worthy, we're not enough, we're not smart enough. And then we continue to keep ourselves small.
And guess what? We will find anything that we seek.
Oh,
So
absolutely.
the
Yeah.
problem with that is it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. It's like, I am not, see, I'm not worthy enough. My spouse rejects me all the time too, but it's because I'm being combative and I'm trying to prove something and I'm doing this. And so the spouse doesn't know how to respond and responds in a way that we actually are manifesting or creating because of the way we're acting. And then it comes back to us and tells us, see, you aren't worthy and you aren't loved. And then you try to do more of what you were just doing, which pushes people further away. And again, it becomes this, I'm telling yourself that you're right. When in reality, it's not true. It's just your intent. You think that about yourself. Therefore, you're acting a certain way. Therefore, you're getting a response from people, which is telling you that you're right, but it's not. You could change the way you feel and see yourself, feel about yourself and see yourself, which would create a different way of how you would be and how you would act, which would make you get a different response from people. And it would show you you are worthy and loved. So it doesn't matter. You got to pick it. You've got to pick what you believe about yourself because it'll create your entire world around you in the way that you think. So that brings me to, if you realize that you're over-identifying, you probably have to get a little bit real with yourself, which is very uncomfortable for people because you did a lot of work, Haley, and I was extremely inspired And I'm proud of you when you did it, because man, you were digging deep. Like, why am I doing that? Why did I do that? I don't know. I'm aware that I did it. It was very detrimental on me, my health, my mental health, everything. Why did I do that?
Around you, and the people around you,
your family, your
yeah.
friends. Yeah. Yeah. So you got to be willing to say, I did this, or I'm acting like this, or I'm over identifying, and why am I? And you've got to be willing to ask yourself the hard question. And most of the time you kind of know what the answer is, maybe not fully. You just are bearing it and you're in denial of it and you don't really want to deal with it. That's what I find most people, because most of the time, if we ask enough questions in enough ways, it's like, well, it could probably be stemming from this. And so we have an inkling of what it could be. Some people really bury it if it was a very traumatic event, and that is something that they have to probably work on with a professional to pull that out. But for the most of us, it was traumatic to us in that moment. It maybe wasn't so traumatic, though, that we buried it to a point where we don't remember it. And so if we just are willing to say, why don't I feel good enough? Why don't I feel worthy? Why don't I feel loved? Why do I feel rejected? Why don't I feel people love me? Why do I feel people are always going to leave me? Why do I feel so insecure? Why don't I trust myself? Those are the things that are showing up that are making you over-identify. So then you have to figure out, what is it, or what could it possibly be? And you need to start doing some personal internal work to realize, look, when I was 8 years old and that happened, that has no bearing on my reality today. And in fact, if I were to look through a different set of lenses, that probably wasn't the reality then, but it is the way it made me feel. And so now I need to work on myself, and then I can go and I can be better for those around me. And I can actually be better in the roles I play. So what I would say that people have to realize is most of us don't put ourselves in positions to be truly proud of ourselves. Like, I just don't, because our egoic part of our mind wants to keep us safe. So in order to be truly proud of ourselves, it means we have to do something hard and overcome it. And most of us won't actually do something super hard to overcome. So we stay really neutral, safe, mediocre, in routines that are just like, nothing too crazy, good enough, but not really great. We don't push ourselves outside of comfort zones. We don't try new things.
I think
there's been a lot.
I think it also manifests in people pleasing, trying to, fit the mold that will make your parents happy, or your spouse happy, or what society says that you should be doing, or what your boss says that you should be doing. And we keep ourselves in a box, right? We keep, because we want it, because we want to be liked, and more importantly, we want to be loved, and we don't want to cause any anybody to be upset with us, because we want to be liked so bad that we lie to ourselves about who we really are, how we thrive, what makes us happy, which really, I think it's just a vicious cycle. And then we're unhappy. We project this energy of resentment, but we don't really know where it's stemming from. It's because we were trying to fit into this mold, or into this box that we just don't. I tell you all the time, I do not fit into a geometric shape. Do not put me in a shape. I don't want to be that.
No, you're right. I mean, and that's part of, because for whatever reason, we feel like we're going to be rejected. So we're trying to avoid that at all costs. So now we're going to just do what we think people want us to do, say what we think they want to say, be how we think they want to be.
How can we be proud of ourselves if how is that living with integrity? If you are only walking around doing what everybody else wants you to do, just so that everyone else around you is happy. That is, it's so toxic on you. And trust me, coming from a person who is a recovering perfectionist, that is how I lived the majority of my life, was to try to make everyone else happy around me. And it becomes, it literally eats away at you a little bit every single time that you keep yourself small to please other people.
Or you keep yourself small to avoid failing, or because you think if you fail, people won't love you or reject you, or you're so afraid of, what people think. And that can stem from all different relationships you had in the past. And so if you think that your personal life and the way you feel about yourself and what you're afraid of, the rejection and what people think, and being loved or worthy doesn't affect your business, you are completely
Wrong. Yeah.
Wrong. It affects every piece of your business. And most of the people following you and I, Haley, are entrepreneurs. And so remember, an entrepreneur, your business is you, whether you like it or not. As it starts to grow, hopefully you're able to remove that. But when you start in any sort of entrepreneurial role, it's like your business is you, because that's all there is. And so it's a really dangerous place, because we bring all these personal problems and challenges into our business life. So here's what I would say is, one of the things I would give as a tip is, remember that you have all different parts of your life. So you've got your relationships, you've got, your, the roles you play relationally, you've got your health and your fitness, and you've got your mental and physical health. Those are two separate things. You have your spirituality. We are spiritual beings living in, this physical world. So that is a need that we have, whatever spiritual preferences we have, we are a spiritual being. We are very growth oriented, personally and professionally. In fact, that's an innate human need. So we're talking about innate human needs, spiritual, relational, because we're social relational creatures, and then growth. Okay. So if we don't focus on the body and the mind we've been given, well, we can't do anything. So that's where it starts. And so if we don't have enough respect for ourselves to take care of ourselves in that way, that is going to manifest a whole bunch of problems. Secondly, if we don't allow ourselves to grow because we're too afraid of what people think about us, we're going to die a little bit every day, because if you're not growing, you're dying. And that is a true saying. And that what you just said is, you feel like it's eating up at you every single day.
Right.
When you're trying to be perfectionist, it's the same thing.
Yeah. Reconsider who you're spending your time with then.
Yeah.
If you are surrounded by people who expect you to be a certain way, I had to ask myself, is it the people around me that are having these expectations?
Or me? Yeah.
And that is a hard conversation to have.
Yeah.
And it is painful to finally recognize, like, oh, it's me. I'm the one that's setting these unrealistic expectations, that's creating this blueprint, and you have to forgive yourself. And it takes time. If you're currently in this process, you can't expect it to happen overnight. Remember, it has taken you years to get to where you're at.
Yes.
Give yourself some time and grace to
get out of it.
And I don't ever say that you want to, you're not necessarily recovering. You're just rediscovering, who you once were.
Yeah.
And you're just healing from that. So give yourself some grace if you're going through that, because it's an emotional,
it's a time
journey.
And it's time. It isn't overnight. That is absolutely right. You have to be in for the long haul. So that actually leads me to kind of how we can close up this conversation, which is, you've got to put yourself in a position to do some hard things so that you can get back to trusting yourself, loving yourself, liking yourself first, loving yourself, realizing you are the first relationship in your world. So when Haley asked the question, who are you surrounding yourself with? There are people around you, but you're surrounding yourself every single day with the conversations in your head. And that's the most important one. It's the most important relationship. It's the most important conversation, is the one that you have with yourself. And if you are so worried about the other things you do and the roles you play and the people around you, it's because you're overcompensating for what you yourself don't have. So I've been very much on a journey of being aware of my own challenges, of how I speak to myself, what I think about myself, if I love myself, if I don't, if I take care of myself, if I don't, what kind of relationship deficiencies I have that are now projecting internally. Do I trust myself? Do I show up for myself? Do I grow? Do I put myself in hard positions and then overcome them and feel really proud of myself? Ask yourself this question. When you think about the time in your life when you did something that was just really challenging, and you were really afraid to do it, but you did it because you had to do it, or you weren't maybe afraid, you were just like, I don't know if I'm going to make that through that, and you overcame that, there is a very great chance that you probably never felt like you felt in that moment before from anything. You can't get that feeling from a relationship or another person. You can't get that feeling from a win in work, a business.
Right.
When you as a human being have to pull out all the stops and talk your mind out of saying no, and pushing through something hard and going through this emotional and taking this time and doing the work, and then you actually get through it, there is a sense of pride and love and joy about yourself. I am worthy. I show up for myself. I can do anything that I need to do, that I want to do. I can make it through. I can do anything on my own. I've got that trust, that strength, that joy. You are the happiest when you put yourself in challenging positions, when you put yourself in positions of growth. You are absolutely 100% the happiest. You will never get that joy and happiness from another person, a relationship, or material thing, or money, or success in business. So we go to all those other things thinking we're going to get this feeling. We don't get that feeling, and then we're upset and we try to get more of it. And so we overcompensate. Instead, remove all of that and start working on yourself. My husband and I did the 75 hard. You've heard it. A lot of people do it. It's like, what is that? Why would you do that? One of the reasons that we did it is because we knew we needed to kind of shift our mindset in this time that we were going through a lot of changes, and we thought it would really bring us strength. We did it together, and it was cool because it actually built a relationship between us, but we did some different things in it. But I'll tell you, if you haven't done it, you don't have to do it. You should go read the book though. The book, he wrote a book about it, and there is some very fascinating things about the transformation that people have gone through when they've decided to just take on a really big personal or professional, really personal, I guess, development challenge, something that pushes them outside of their own comfort zone, that they cannot rely on anyone else. You have to rely solely on yourself. This is where you become so happy and proud, and this self-esteem, confidence, trust, and self-love generates. Then you can take all of that and you can go to work and you can go, whatever happens, happens, because I know I can do anything. If this fails, I'll rebound and we'll build something else. If this relationship ends, it's going to suck because I love this person, but I'm telling you, I know I'll make it through because I love myself more than I love anything else. I trust myself more than I trust anything else. That's when you can start having neutrality in these roles and these relationships. That does not mean you don't fiercely love people. You don't fiercely go to work and try to be your best. It means you don't bring this baggage of personal unworthiness and challenges into those relationships or business that are creating a whole bunch of problems. It's when you actually can start to achieve your fullest potential, because you no longer hold yourself back, you just go for it. And that's when you become the best version of yourself. And I promise you, your relationships will be better, because your relationship is a reflection to some degree of how you feel about yourself. And so is your business. So we can talk about this forever, but it's a great conversation. I think that's what I would tell you to do, is pick something, do something very challenging outside of your comfort zone for you, not for business, not for somebody else, for you. Commit to it and start proving to yourself who you really are and what you can really do. And I think you're going to find that you start building up some love and trust, and that is going to start allowing you to create some space between the roles you play. It's not an overnight process. It certainly is a journey. Haley and I have both been through it, and we're here to help you if you'd like to talk about it. So be sure to reach out to us.
Thank you. Yeah, beautiful. Thank you, Cari.
All right, you guys, thanks so much. See you next week.